Chapter 17, mobile device support, is really short, but is important and is generally an introduction to cascading style sheets, or at least one of the two chapters that we'll be covering that is an introduction, because, there were ways that we did things before cascading style sheets, but things are just more efficient now that we have CSS. So with mobile device support, that means, we're not just using a computer anymore to access websites. We're using our cell phones and our tablets and whatever other devices besides a computer screen or a laptop even. So when you're using mobile devices, well, you know that there's different situations. There's, the screen's not so big, and it's much harder to see something. So basically, what websites use nowadays, of course, not all of them use it, and there are some websites out there that still are not responsive. So the text is going to be very small, and you're still going to see a lot of content on the page, and it's really hard to view using a cell phone or a tablet. And so that means that they're not using responsive design, and that can actually, scare away your viewers because it's just hard to read. Okay, so in responsive design, remember that I've mentioned it before. I'm going to pause sharing real quick. Okay, I have mentioned before that, web pages, well, we're looking at the web page right now of our class, but here's the web page to log into our account. But if I were to make it smaller, see how it's changing, that means that it is a responsive page. So that's what the responsive, and actually what we're doing is within our web page, we're determining what is the size of the screen and then changing the content dependent on that. So we might want to remove things like any videos or excessive backgrounds, and want to be sure that the content will be move so that it's easier to view the page. And as text, the content is broken down into logical pieces and have either class and or ID attributes, and those allow those different items to show, hide, or reposition them depending on the size of the screen, and you use CSS to do that. So the thing to remember is that if you want to control the page, like move, you're going to use the ID tag. And if you want to basically have items that share changes, like all of your H1s, then you should use the same class or classes. And those would be like for pictures, links, paragraphs, that kind of thing. Okay, and also know that a single element can have both an ID and a class, and they can receive the changes from both of those items. Okay, and as I was mentioning before, mobile devices, not only are they smaller, but they also lack computing power. So you may want to skip any fancier animations or any large background images. So these are just things that you really want to consider. In addition to, loading times as well. You want to make sure that, anything that mobile devices are using won't load so long that, again, you'll just make your user go away. So that is it for chapter 17. And here are some links that'll help you out with more information if you're interested. And chapter 18 is just as short. It is about tags to avoid. Tags to avoid is, you know, a lot of them have to do with the tags that we used to use back when basically CSS didn't exist. So the tags that we would use are something like B for bold. You would also use strong to bold items. Then we had I for italic. And they would put emphasis on the text. But the problem with that is that every time you used B for bold or strong, you would have to do it in every area that you wanted to be formatted that way. And that would mean that, you know, there's different reasons why it's beneficial to use CSS. But my biggest deal was that you would have to edit style in 2 different places. So you can have, you know, the B in 10 different places. So if you wanted to change it, you would have to go to 10 different places, either on your page or on different pages to make the changes. And that's just a lot of work. And I mentioned different pages because there are different ways of doing cascading style sheets or CSS. You can put the CSS in a certain page that you're using, or you can use an external style sheet that actually will impact many different pages among your website. So, so you just make the change within that external page, and then it'll affect all the different pages that refer to that style sheet. In addition, there was a font tag that we would use, and basically this font tag would be to change different things about the font, like the font style, maybe the color. It would be font and then color equals something to actually change the font color, or font size equals 12 or 18 or whatever, like the size. So, but again, you would have font on every different area that you wanted to change the font. So anytime that you wanted to change the font, you would have to go into every time you have this font tag. So again, CSS will help you do that much more efficiently and quickly, which is always a good thing. Okay, BR is one of those that we really don't want to use. I know that we have been using it, but you can still use it, but you just want to keep in mind that BR is generally the same as paragraph tags, you know, but paragraph tags has space before and after the entire paragraph. A BR would just right where it is, it'll have the space. But, you know, there are just different ways of starting content on another line. So just be aware that there might be a better way of doing things than just using a BR. And, you know, at this point, you know, you don't have, you know, we haven't been working a lot with HTML. So eventually you'll get to see when you should and shouldn't use it. Okay, and in it, there's also styling attributes that you don't really want to use. And the number one thing I would say is, you know, aligning content, which is, remember we were creating tables to separate content, and that's how we used to create web pages. We would use tables so that everything was laid out correctly or nicely, but that's not really a good way to do it now because it doesn't help with responsive styling, where if you make the web page smaller, it just makes the content in the table, you know, more squished. It really isn't an effective way to do a responsive page. And we would also do borders as well on the tables, but you can do that within paragraph tags or divs or heading tags, and you'll see that once we start cascading style sheets next week. So chapter 19 will be style sheets, and that is what we will start next week.